So Storm God's asking about plateauing as a player. I mean, there are a lot of different things you can do. It's no easy task to figure out what you need to find to focus on to get better as a player, because it kind of varies based on the player. And not every coach is going to be able to connect with what you need to learn and how you need to approach the game. I think there's the learning element of figuring out what your mistakes are and what to focus on. And there's also what I would kind of call the fire or the passion element, where you really actually want to change your situation and get better for the sake of getting better. A lot of people want to get better for the sake of like impressing someone or achieving something that would make them happy. It's good to have goals like that, but really just enjoying the game and liking putting in volume and wanting to win over time and being curious about your losses. Let's see what Nutella's doing. 4 lings, making the drones. 4-player maps are always a little bit more scary than usual because it could be 13-12 and lings would just shoot into your base right now. What's your plan?
Should I be watching the replay or your stream?
Replay. That's kind of the benefit of being the student, is we get to like talk about stuff as soon as it's happening, rather than you have to watch it at a delay and then ask questions at a delay. Like the real-time interaction. Okay, so let's talk about how you want to play ZVZ. Do you like Ling Bane? Do you like Roach? Do you like upgraded Lings? What's your flavor?
I prefer Roach. My Bane micro is not the best, but I kind of feel forced into it a lot because everybody else does it.
Okay. So we can talk about some ways to get into Roach that would be pretty safe. Do you like getting Ling speed early and taking a 3rd base and kind of going into Roach that way? Or would you prefer like a 2-base Roach approach?
I prefer the 3-base.
Okay, so a really nice build that will allow you to kind of take initiative and not get attacked like this and feel like, oh god, now I have my opponent striking at me. A really smart time to make some units is around 32 supply, 2 overlords, make some lings, take 3rd behind, then Roach Warren. That's sort of the way of playing a ZVZ and understanding that ZVZ, unlike the other matchups, is less about like I'm going to drone this much and then I'm going to make units, I'm going to scout at this time. ZVZ is just a straight up fighting game. And that's kind of the first fight in ZVZ that happens off of hatch first builds. If people are going hatch first, they have ling speed, they're going to have the capacity to make some lings. Juno called it the pump timing, where it's the first big decision that each macro Zerg player makes. Are you going to drone with that inject cycle or make lings? Because if you drone, then you're going to need either a wall off or a bunch of Banes or a bunch of Roaches to defend. But if you prefer to take a 3rd at a fast time, then you should just make some lings, and then you can make drones after that.
Okay.
Because let's look at this Ling Bane setup from the opponent, and what the attack would look like if you made a bunch of lings right now. So let's see, you have 3 drones on the way, you have some supply. Let's imagine that this inject cycle that's about to land, you just spent it all into lings. You can see a bunch of lings here. If you flooded lings and you fought them at the watchtower, they can't morph Banes, because they need to have as many lings, if not more, to beat you in a fight and protect their Banes.
Alright.
So 32 supply, 2 overlords, a bunch of lings is kind of your safety precaution against that sort of thing. And if the opponent's passive, then you could be putting pressure on a 3rd base with the Roach Warren behind it. Because now you're kind of unnecessarily on the back foot. You could have beaten this group of stuff really easily if you had a bunch of lings. And then you can kind of push them back across the map into Roach play.
Alright.
And then some other like general build timings. When you have 2 base mineral, which is 16 plus 16, take 2nd gas. And let's say, how often do you pull off of gas in general, would you say? Like when you take ling speed, do you pull off at all?
I do not.
Okay. That would be something that's optional. It's going to give you a little bit more mineral income, and you'll be able to make a bit more lings and more drones and that sort of thing, but it's not required. Like, you could still do this same build and just make lings and then make a roach warren behind that and then make roaches. So now you're in a very icky, sticky situation. You have a bunch of stuff between your bases. And this is kind of a, I would say, a way of the samurai match. I have no idea how you survive this long, to be honest. I guess the opponent, they were kind of one base all in with that. One thing that I think will help a lot with ZVZ is thinking about spending all of your gas into something. Because the gas is where a lot of the luxury decisions, the tech, your approach to the matchup are disclosed by the players. Like, that's how you make edges, is how you spend your minerals, and especially spend your gas. A lot of players, like when you're swinging in like platinum to diamond, they'll have periods where they float gas and they're not quite sure where to spend it. Usually it's better to just spend it into something than to not spend it into anything, because that's the difference between kinetic energy, the energy of what you have actively moving on the map, versus potential energy, stuff that could be but isn't. So like, imagine your bank right now, if it was all roaches, you had that many roaches, that would be pretty nice and you would feel pretty safe in this situation.
Yeah.
So we'll say, as a note, spend gas aggressively in ZVZ to take edges. I think with the roach build, that'll make it pretty obvious. You'll be going lings to be safe and also potentially put on pressure, and then you'll be making roaches. After you have some roaches and you put on some roach ling pressure, you would go layer, +1 range, roach speed, and then more roaches. One kind of general principle that you can follow whenever you're at the 3 base stage is you take your third gas, so we'll say third gas, spend gas into tech / roaches, extra mineral into drone. For a roach macro style, the reason you stop making lings is because lings are bad against +1 attack roaches. The roach just becomes a much more efficient unit to make if you're kind of going with roach as your main plan. So all these lings, they're not helping with the defense that much. They're a little bit of a buffer, but if you just had a few more roaches and a few more drones, then you can make even more roaches.
Got it.
It is rarely a mysterious technique which drives us to the top, but rather a profound mastery of what may well be roach production. It's kind of amazing that, like, moving up in the leagues is sort of based on those simple principles of make more drones, make more roaches, and you will beat more opponents.
Yeah, I struggle with my whole drone and macro.
Mm-hmm. One useful drill that you can do for yourself is practice this progression in an empty game, because ZVZ is such a tough fighting game where they're crashing lings and banes into your bases and your drone lines, and you're like splitting frantically and trying to survive. A lot of players will never give themselves the opportunity to see what would my build be like if I wasn't being constantly harassed and I could just do it perfectly. It's harder than you might think. Like, I even will make some mistakes when I'm doing my main build just in an empty game. So that's a really nice thing to do, is figure out, alright, when am I taking my gases? How am I spending my money? When am I taking my base? How am I kind of leveling up my tech? And then, what does my first max out look like? That's a really, really important question that a lot of people will get lost in kind of the mid-game of, alright, I have my third base, I've drone, now what? Looks like you're doing your duty of representing the roaches, though. You came back in this game really nicely.
Sort of, yeah.
I thought you were just straight up dead. Nice. Kill the base and then you run. Scoot and shoot. Alright. And you have roaches at home. +2 ranged attack. Yeah, so this seems to be like more of your comfort zone. once you get into the mid-game Roach versus Roach, you have a better sense of what you're doing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So I think the adjustment to the opening build will help you be less knocked off balance by opponents and their random Ling Bane pressure and stuff. It'll make it a cleaner game. Because you think about like the bases and your mining and stuff, and if you just make some dedicated units at some magical times in the game, then your drones will just be less disturbed. You'll have a few less drones because you made some lings, but they won't be under attack and you won't have to like micro workers and army at the same time and stuff. Sweet. So you've got your bases. Let's see. 43 workers. Do you know about the like mousing over the supply in the top right corner? And you can see your
Yeah, I
worker
actually
count?
learned that from you a while ago.
Sweet. So we'll say ZVZ Roach versus Roach target drone count is 55 to 65. We'll give you a bit of some wiggle room there. But in other matchups, it would be about 10 higher than that. But since it's so aggressive and Roaches are so cheap, I think that's a good starting point for just being able to consistently power up strong armies and then trade them with your opponent over and over again.
Okay.
I feel like you can win this game.
I think it was an upgrade. I just realized he had +2 Carapace.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, 2/2 Roaches. Hydra. So you have the Hydra range upgrade, you have +2 attack, you have a 4th base, and the opponent's still on 2 bases. Get maxed. 13 Hydras. I think in this situation, if you have 13 Hydras, maybe topping off the rest of it with Roaches would be good. It's pretty dangerous to overmake Hydras, especially on a big map like this, where Hydras can't retreat, so it's kind of a committal unit. If you put it across the map, it's slower than Roaches, so your opponent could chase you all the way home and kill all your Hydras. But yeah, the imbalance of your minerals to gas is kind of due to not having quite enough drones. You're droning your 4th now, which is good. And then taking armor. Lurker is a good transition after Hydra. You could also experiment if you wanted to with taking the Lurker Den before the Hydra range upgrade. It'll make you a little bit more defensive with it, but I think it's better. Like, players are generally worse at dealing with Lurker than they are dealing with Hydra.
Yeah, I can say I rarely go into Lurker for some reason.
Mm-hmm. The thinking, if you were going to go for some Lurker play, would be, what's your target? Like, what's your objective that you're trying to kill? Say, maybe your objective here could be, I want to control this area. So you could move forward with your army, and then you have your Lurkers behind your army. And then you want to put your Lurkers kind of back here, kind of like a Terran would siege you with mines or tanks. And then you try and bait their army into the Lurkers. You can't really, like, move forward with Lurkers, but you can get to a location that's right outside their door, where you kind of entice them to go and take a fight.
Alright.
But I would say the order of things to work on would be, for one, getting your build crisp and familiar, where you kind of see what it feels like against the different ZVZ stuff, and then getting a nice drone count, and then maxing out. And the Lurker would be kind of like, once you've done those things, then you can focus on making a nice composition. So let's do a little micro practice, because I think, let's look at the supply. I think you can win that fight if you have everything all together. One of the most important Zerg micro skills, it's more of a formation skill, I guess, is you have your army in one clump, and then you box half of it, and you make 2 clumps. So you'll get a much better trade for your value, more of a concave, more of your units will participate. Because if you slow things down, a lot of times in the fights, not all the units will be actively shooting stuff. They'll just be kind of running around waiting for the front line to die before they can shoot. So let's see. Yeah, you're max and the opponent has 160 supply. So
Yeah,
what you're gonna
where
do?
it all fell apart.
What you're gonna do is I'm gonna give you a little bit of time just so you can get into a formation, since like this isn't, since this isn't super internalized yet. Get these overlords and drop creep. You should have your area of the map creeped so you can move around pretty quickly. And then think about splitting your army to where you have a little bit here, a little bit in this entrance, and a little bit kind of at the third where your army is. And I'm going to come in, and you're going to get a big concave on my army and prevent me from being able to take a good trade.
Alright.
Take your time, like, basically tell me when you're ready, because it's better to do this slow and know what it should look like in the ideal case than to, like, expect you to react as though this were a ladder game right now.
Gotcha.
So I'm taking Chloe, and you are Nutella. 3, 2, 1. Because you have a really big supply advantage here, and you have defender's advantage. So just tell me when you feel like you're ready to defend that area.
Alright, I think I'm good.
Okay. Brr, I'm timing attack, Zerg. I'm very strong. Oh my god! Hang on. I have corrosive biles. You can't stop me. Good job. Okay, next game.
Alright, let me pull one up here.
No, don't run in there, no. I know.
I got a sloppy ZVZ for you. I know you wanted a sloppy win. This one got kind of ridiculous. But let me see here. I want to show you this one. I'm pretty sure it's one where I quit too early, but I wanted to get your opinion on it anyway.
Okay. ZVT. So this is for ZVT. Box army into 2 to 3 groups to get concave for main fight. What are the elements of success in Roach versus Roach engagements? So we'll say positioning, formation, upgrades, value, composition. You want to try and take as many of those advantages as you can. So that last game, the opponent had the edge of upgrades. You had the edge of composition. You had a very Hydra-heavy composition. You had the edge of value with more supply. But the opponent got the better kind of formation and position on you. So they won the fight, even though you had lots of edges. Terran on this map. There's lots of 3 Rax Reaper. There's lots of 4 Barracks Marine. Hello? Catch gas. Pool. Swimming pool. Drone scout. Stealing a gas.
I've got a bad habit of doing that against Terran.
It's not terrible. I would say if you're gonna do that, you could probably delay your gas income a little bit because you're sacrificing some mineral income to be annoying. It's not the worst.
Yeah.
But basically you have to kind of compensate for the income that you sacrifice by killing your own drone. There is some psychological value in just pissing your opponent off with certain stuff, so maybe a good thing. So you have an evo. Okay. What's your game plan for ZVT?
So usually, depending on what I see, like there, I saw the Marine first, so I make the assumption that they're gonna end up going bio. So I usually go for the fast evo to get +1 armor.
Mm-hmm.
And then transitioned into Banes after that with mutas if I don't scout mech coming first, which I didn't really scout here.
Okay. Well, Carapace is pretty nice because it helps both Roach stuff and Lingbane stuff. What's the Terran doing here? I have a couple Hellions going. Okay, you see 2 Hellions there. Worker lead. Looks like you're in a really good spot. So if you're thinking about the order of the gas spending, I would, there you go, yeah. Carapace and Lair I think is pretty good, and then you could go melee, and then add on the second Evo. I would say this is a viable, acceptable build.
Alright.
One timing to note, as you move up, you will face this build more and more, but versus double Marine, make 30 lanes at 4:30 game time. That's just a good thing to know. It's one of the strongest builds, and if you don't do that, then you just die. So in this case, they went for a Hellion opener, and I think your response was basically fine. Like, you made enough lings to catch the Hellions on creep, you have upgrades going, you have a Lair going. One thing that you want to find out is what's their follow-up to the Hellions? Are they going to go for bio? Is it a 3rd CC? Is it some Starport Banshee cloak business? 5 minutes is a pretty good time to send an Overlord into the Terran base. Just sack it. It's worth sacrificing an Overlord. You have a really nice mineral bank right now, so I would say around like 5 minutes, make 4 Overlords and sack 1 into Terran main to see production. That's probably the most important read in the game, and then Overseer scouting when your lair is done would be good, but usually they're going to be showing you what they're doing after that point.
Got it.
Banshee, Factory, they're going double upgrades for mech. Wow. Wow. Nice. Mass Queens. Make the units that Avilo complains about. So Queens against mech, let's say, for example, you did sack the Overlord and you saw the double armory. What's your preferred approach against mech? Like, what unit compositions do you like?
If I see mech, I just automatically start going for Roach into Ravager, but my Ravager gameplay is not very good.
Mm-hmm. Something that I've been doing more is using Swarm Host instead of Roach as a stepping stone to get into Broodlord with Hydra and Corruptor. Because if they're making tanks, then Roaches and Ravagers are the units that they're hoping that you're going to make. And Ravagers have the armored flag now, so they're weaker against tanks than they used to be. So Swarm Host, like, imagine right now, imagination game. Imagine you just made 16 Swarm Hosts. What can the Terran do? The 2 Banshees can't kill Swarm Hosts very fast. So you could run over here and then slam dunk a bunch of Locusts into their main, and they would be having a very sad day. And behind that you could go for Hive, because the Infestation Pit automatically unlocks a Hive, and also Hydroden and ranged upgrades. Just an idea.
Alright.
So, versus mech. Potential solutions. Upgraded. Roach Ravager. Max out. Swarm Host as stepping stone to Hive for Brood. Hydra. Corruption. Say Roach Hydra Viper is another option. For all solutions, make many queens with minerals. The queen is an especially good unit, not just for what it is, but for what it isn't. A queen is not gas. It costs you no gas, which means that you can advance up the Zerg tech tree faster if you make more queens. Looks like you got some nice Roach Ravager here. Banshee's going into the main. Do you have your queens on a separate hotkey? You do, that's excellent. Okay, so let's think about positioning against this mech army, because I think you can win this fight. I think it's another one of those. Okay, so you have your army still. Banshees are going into the main. This kind of follows with the kinetic and the potential energy thing. Like, I wouldn't say that Roach Ravager is the best composition here, but I think you can do it. Like, that would be a fair approach. But you would want to leverage one of the nice buttons you can use as a Roach Ravager Zerg, which is just selecting your roaches and holding down the Ravager button. Because the Ravager is a higher DPS, longer range unit with an ability that can be used against the Terran. So if you feel like you're in crisis mode and, oh god, dear god, there's a huge mech army that's pushing me right now, and I would like to make different units, but Ravager is like the only main tech I have unlocked, just make a bunch of them.
Okay.
So I think units, you're a bit behind in workers, but I think you could crush this fight pretty decisively if you did the same thing that we practiced last time, where you create an arc first before you move in, and you just mass a bunch of Ravagers once you know the attack is happening. Just make as many as you can, and then make roaches after that. So let's take over. I'll take the Terran, and I'm gonna still harass in the main with the Banshees, and then move forward with the mech units at your front, and try to be patient, make the Ravagers with your money, get the arc, and then go kill the mech army. You want to try and hit the corrosive biles on the tanks. The Hellbats are something they want to have as the buffer for their army. So if you corrosive bile the tanks, then their army is pretty much worthless. They just have Thor Hellbat, which is bad against Roach.
Got it.
Let's dance. Neuro is shade. Decade is Nutella. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Zerg is so stupid. I'm getting into this. Oh, Queens. All right. Oh no! Corrosive bile.
Yeah, it's the queen. I'm not good at the hotkeys right now.
Oh, yeah, don't bind queens with the Ravager army. It's 3 bile shots per tank. Shit.
Okay. Yeah, the queens were tied up in there. That's what happened.
Oh, no! Shit. Okay, but I think you get the idea there.
Yeah.
I would recommend either Hydra or Swarm Host to kind of spice up your play against mech. The Roach Ravager stuff is fairly linear, so it's going to be easier for them to deal with. With the Swarm Host, you don't necessarily have to use it to like harass their production. You can just use it whenever their army comes toward you. Like their army's moving across the map, just throw a wave of a whole bunch of locusts. It's going to kill like half their army, and they're going to have to run home all injured. So it's a really good unit to make if you have a lot of resource. And then you can get into Hive Tech.
Yeah, I've got to work on using those units because I rarely ever do, really.
Mm-hmm. I did a video yesterday explaining how to use Swarm Hosts against mech. I'll link that in the chat and I'll also put it in the email.
Sounds good.
Videos? How did the export to YouTube fail? Damn it. That happens sometimes. I exported like 4 videos last night. I guess one was bound to fail. Oh well. There's the Swarm Host trap video though. Okay, up against Protoss. What's your game plan against Protoss?
I'm kind of bad against them. I don't feel like I faced them enough on ladder recently to really know what to do anymore against them. I usually scout it if I see that they're going for a second base right away. I have it in my mindset that I need to start worrying about roaches almost immediately against Protoss.
If they have a natural?
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm so scared of adepts, and I feel like roaches is my only hope.
Mm-hmm. So there's another magical time in ZVP that's pretty close to the magical time in ZVT against the double medivac. It's 4:30. So that's kind of a theme that comes up in both the versus Protoss and the versus Terran matchup, and mainly that's due to how two base timings work. If they have a second base, but they're going to put on some aggression at some point, usually around 5 minutes is when it's going to be knocking on your door if their build is correct. So you can kind of know that, like, that's a limitation of the progression of the tech tree, and then know to make some units around that time. So I would say one of the things that's not punishable by Protoss is you taking an early third base. It's going to help you spend this bank that you have and keep you real safe. So let's just type out a CVP build so you have some direction for how to open up in an optimized, economical way. So 13 Overlord, 17 hash, 18 gas, 17 pool, and then let's do wing speed. Would you prefer to just stay on gas? Because we can do it either way.
It doesn't matter. I mean, if it's better to take them off, I can start doing that. I just naturally leave them on, though.
Mm-hmm. I think leaving the workers on is basically fine. And you prefer Roach play over Link Bane against Protoss, right?
Yes. I haven't really tried Bane against Protoss.
Okay. So we'll do Link speed first 100 gas, and then pull 2 workers off gas.
And I also don't really know what to look for to see if they're going DTs. Like, lately I've just been so convinced that everybody's doing DTs that I just blindly get spores.
Mm-hmm. So 19 Overlord, 2 Queens, 4 Lings. At 100% Link speed. Check for 3rd Nexus, and check Protoss front. A lot of times they'll put their Dark Shrine or their Twilight or whatever at their front over here, so just running Lings up to the front will give you some information. And Link speed is the best time to do that because you can move forward, look, and then fall back. If you were to see something like DT, the defensive response would be lair, 1 spore per base, 3 roaches per spore. Will keep you nice and safe against that. But
okay.
The spore timing against Protoss is 4-minute spores. We'll say make a few extra queens on a hotkey for defense. Ideally 6. So you have 3 queens injecting, 3 queens spreading creep, and dealing with the prism. It's one of the things that, I don't know why it's the case, but creep spread isn't really focused on the same way against Protoss as it is against Terran, but I would say it's about equal importance, because like this area being creeped is really useful for letting your queens move between the bases and your units and your drones and just being able to see all your territory. And then having creep spread that goes out beyond your base means you have more warning for attacks and you're less likely to be surprised by stuff. So I'll do the in control gif from his stream where he's sort of tongue-in-cheek making fun of Zerg and how they just like spam stuff of Lings and drones and queens, and how queens can do so many different things. Take it from the mind of a Protoss. What is really frustrating for a Protoss to go against? 4 defensive queens that are really focused on defending the hive cluster. It's all minerals. It seems unfair. It's really, really strong to just have 4 queens connecting the bases with creep, providing information, deflecting oracle, deflecting prism, and that'll allow you to focus on 3 roaches per spore, getting your lair, getting your ranged attack, roach speed, and then doing a roach ravager max out or something.
Okay.
Say 4:30, you could make Lings, 2 defend, 7 to 9 adepts. Say versus Prism DT, 3 roaches per spore. Lair, Overlord speed, about a Roach Raptor. I'll take him fourth. That would be sort of a basic bread and butter Zerg approaching a matchup. Now, I just want to tell you, I've lost a hatchery like this to DTs more times than I care to mention. It feels bad.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Yeah, it feels really bad, and it basically loses you the game most of the time. So, one of the things to focus on would be when you're doing 3 roaches per spore, you have your 4-minute spores, and then you start your lair, and then you make a few overlords, like 3 or 4 overlords, and then you click a hatch, select the larva, 3 roaches, click the spore, and then repeat that process for all your hatches. So the roaches don't need to go in a control group, they don't need to run around the bases. They're kind of the defensive force protecting each base of economy. And if they come into this base, the spore is protected, so they can't dive the spore and kill that either.
Gotcha.
So say versus Prism DT, 3 or 4 overlords. That's always one of the things that I sometimes forget to mention, but is really, really crucial, is once you've identified what the pressure is going to be from the opponent, before you do anything else, you have to make some overlords to make that production a possibility. Because a lot of times it's like, oh god, it's a 2-base Immortal Sentry all in, I have to make units, and then you supply block yourself. And you go, oh god, I have to make overlords. And then you make units again once those pop, and then you're dead. Same thing with like Terran. If you were to go into the main, and this was a Terran, and you saw like 6 Hellions and Banshee production and an armory, and you're like, oh god, it's going to be Banshee Hellbat, I need to make units. You should think, okay, I know what the pressure is, I need to make overlords, and then I'll make the units.
Alright.
Roaches.
It just gets worse from here.
Yeah, if the Protoss has a third, don't be afraid to drone your third. I mean, this is the type of game where the DT kind of knocked you off balance and everything's kind of messed up. So I know the feels. It's not the best.
Yeah, that was pretty much the end of that one.
Yeah. So Roach Ravager would be a good like 3-base composition to go for, and then Hydra Lurker at 4-base saturation. We'll say get up to 65 to 70 drones versus Protoss. It's a pretty good range. So you can max out and then trade your army and then max out again. Because that's the main strength of Zerg over Protoss. Our units are shitty, but they're produced really fast, so we can basically take 2 fights in quick succession when Protoss and Terran can't keep up with our production. We all the swarm. Nutella versus Dr. Rotinage. Honor grounds.
This is a pretty sad one to watch too.
It's okay. It's a process of learning. It comes with some sadness. When I get coached by Juno or someone who's really good and really knowledgeable, I feel sad too. Because I fucked up and I wasn't using my brain and I lost the game. I didn't take my advantages. But once you kind of get all these notes, there's a very clear track of like, alright, this is where I'm weak, this is what I need to focus on. And even if you did half the things, you would be getting better. Alright, so you're taking your 3 bases. Terran's going triple factory. What is with all this mech? I guess Avilo did save esports.
Yeah, I had no idea that was going on either in this one.
So that would be the 5-minute scout. It would tell you. Just sack whatever. Like, I think you had an overlord here. Just sack it. 5-minute overlord scout. So we're throwing it away. Okay, so mass Hellion like this. Let's go back to 5 minutes, and let's imagine that you hit the scout timing and saw it. Because it's too late after that.
Yeah, it's bad.
Oh, it's 10 Hellions in my drone line. That's a bummer. Okay, So 5 minutes, you float in, and you see this. Oh God! So what do? I would pull all the queens, put them on a hotkey, put them right here. Do you have a roach horn being made? Do you have double evo? All right. Well, you're making lings then, because you can't make roaches right now. So let's back it up, because you're dead at this heli run by. Let's back it up, and you will scout with the overlord, and then you'll make a couple overlords. You'll pull all your queens and make lings as hard as you can and try and defend this location. So queens are kind of at the front, and then lings catch the hellions as they try and run behind.
All right.
I am Dr. Rotinage. 3, 2, 1, go.
Va falloir assurer. Où est-ce que ça chauffe? Va y avoir du grabuge. Je vous attends. Va y avoir du grabuge. Allumez. Va y avoir du grabuge. Roule. Je suis dans la mouise. Va y avoir du grabuge. Toute la journée. Parlez-moi, chef.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Ça roule. Chauffe, Marcel. Ah, ça te dit bien. Pile poil. On y va. Trop fort.
No.
J'y vais. Va y avoir du grabuge. Où est-ce? Allumez. Vous attends. Parlez-moi. On brûle le bitume.
It makes me feel really stupid.
What?
Just like, it is possible, but in the moment, when I see that, I was just like, fuck.
So, when I play against Sevilo, and he complains about Zerg just spams queens and lings and defends everything. He's right. It's kind of the subtle, basic secret of just spending your minerals into swarmy stuff, which will allow you to either put on pressure or defend pressure, and by making queens and lings, you free up gas to more tech and better units later on.
Okay. Now on this map, I actually vetoed it, but I'm removing it off veto because I don't know if you agree, but I've seen players take what would be the third as their second base first.
That's how I do it.
Okay.
Mainly, it's because this map is complete and utter garbage for 3 Racks Reaper, so there's not really anything to be afraid of. If it's a proxy 4 Racks Marine or something, then your natural is going to be sacked regardless of where you expand, so
Gotcha.
it's not a big deal. So you've got this Overlord out here. Sweet. What the hell? Cyclone, Hellion, Tank, 1 base. Oh, please check the left, please. Alright, so this isn't really a build that's very popular because it's kind of bad, but some people will do it. It's a 1 base Cyclone build. If your first Overlord gets shot at by Cyclones, they're all inning you. This is a unit that is very expensive, and it's overkill for defending at this stage of the game. Like, they have a wall off and a tank and 2 Hellions. This is like way too much stuff to be safe at the high ground. These 2 bases are very easy to defend. So if like before 4 minutes you see Hellions, or Cyclones, they're gonna hit you with some weird shit real soon. So what I would do, instead of standing right here at the ramp, you would want to be spreading creep, like to fill the area and increase where you can take good fights. Because that's kind of what you have for time right now, is these units are fairly slow, so if they're going to do a 1 base build to you, you should creep all your area, and then you can make a bunch of units and take a good fight.
Got it. So this one I should just read the cyclones and known right away.
Yeah, it's sort of like the only read you really needed, but I would say 1 ling or 4 lings just on the map would be really good to know when this is moving out. Because if this attack was moving out now, you could just make... You would not take a lair, you would make like 3 overlords, and then you would make roachling until the game is over. So, we're on a roll with these takeover things, so why not? Why not? So your overlord's about to die. You're going to spread
Yes.
creep in the area. You're going to make 3 overlords, and then you're going to make roachling until the game is over.
Got it.
I am Vickle Pickle. Hear me roar. Watch my 1 base all in. Mop the floor. Oh, I have to click the lock-on thing. That's strange.
C'est pas la fin. On brûle. Parlez plus fort.
Your supply blocked. What are you going to do now?
Envoyez la sauce.
This opponent can afford to expand.
Allez-y. Un truc à faire sauter. Allez-y.
Coming to get you.
Opérationnel. Prêt à partir. Affirmatif. Quelle est la cible? Qu'est-ce que c'est?
I'm gonna get you.
C'est tout moi. Roule ma poule. C'est pas la fin. Parlez plus fort. Un truc à faire sauter. Allez-y. Je mets les... Quelle est la cible? C'est jouable. Oui, commandant.
Oh man.
Sweet.